today, and I'm so excited for the More Than Sober Summit. I'm so excited for you to be a part of it and so excited that you're here. How are you?
I'm doing great, Britni. Thanks for having me. Congratulations on getting all this together.
Yes, thank you. So there's just so much to you. And I know that you have ministry, you have Hope is Alive, and you guys are in so many places. God has just really blessed you. But first, I want to know the beginning of Lance. What does that look like? Who is the beginning before Hope is Alive, before your book, before this successful man?
Oh, wow. How much time do you have?
Yeah. Yeah.
No, I'm a Baptist preacher's kid from a small town in Northeast Oklahoma.
Wow.
So I grew up in a small town prior Oklahoma. My dad was a pastor of a large church in a small town, which means that
Wow.
I grew up in a glass house,
A glass
and
house.
I felt a lot of judgment, a lot of guilt. Never quite could live up to people's expectations. And about the time I was realizing and feeling all that, somebody asked me if I wanted to get high one day.
Yeah.
After football practice. And, if you really go back and trace what made me into what I'm doing today and how God's used all of it, it really starts, behind a guy's house near the park in Pryor, smoking a little red pipe with some weed in it. And it changed my whole brain chemistry. It changed who I was, and temporarily it gave me a sense of relief. And I was kind of able to escape some of that judgmental feelings that I had. And as you know, you begin to find a tribe of people, unfortunately, that are doing the same things, feeling the same ways, medicating their trauma in the same way. And as you kind of begin to get into that peer group, then they introduce you to new drugs and more drugs, and
it just keeps going. Yeah,
it does. And so before, all of this has started the past 10 years and God kind of getting a hold of my life, that's who I was. I was a struggling drug addict. I was working, I was a business guy, but on the nights and the weekends and even during the day, a lot of time, I was just changing the way that I felt as much as I possibly could. And when I was about 25 years old, I found opiates. And for all the opiates addicts out there, that's kind of game over. And so it was a perfect storm for me of making a pretty good living, having a pretty good dealer, and loving the way that opiates felt. And by the end of that 3-year run, I was taking about 50 pills a day, quite frankly, and it had taken over my life. And I'll stop right there. But that's kind of what brought me to the place of my intervention and getting clean and sober. But I'll stop there.
Well, what you said is so validating that there are people out in the world, there are businessmen and women who are of certain status, maybe, that they are still using drugs in the background and they are still coping in the background, but they are still going to work every single day and they do not look like an addict. And there's kind of not resources for those kinds of people who are just high functioning and still out there using drugs.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was me. I was stuck in a corporate office. I was a guy that was a salesman, really. So I'd take people out all across the country, and I was supposed to, in a lot of ways, party. I mean, that was my job, to take them out, entertain them, make them feel good, earn that business. And for a guy with a natural propensity for addiction or going 100%, not knowing when to quit, never having enough, that was a really bad combination for me. And so I didn't really know if I could reach out, if I could ask for help. I certainly didn't know how to or where to go. But even if I don't even know that I knew that I could say something. I felt like it was just what I was supposed to do. And the pills only made me better at it, at least for a short period of time. And the next thing I knew, I was in complete bondage.
Right. Okay, so what's that process of getting out of the bondage look like?
Yeah, well, thankfully I had a family member who was my uncle and who was my boss, which meant that he controlled the most important thing for addicts. That was the money.
Yeah.
Show me the money.
Yeah.
Without the money, I was done. And he put my back almost physically up into a corner one day, April 6th, 2011, and told me I had a choice. You could
Mhm.
either tell me what's going on or this game's over.
Yeah.
And thankfully, he put me in a place where I had no other choice but to just be honest and
Mhm.
confess what was going on in my life. I had been caught before, though, Brittany, and I've been confronted before. But what I had never done is I'd never truly confessed. And
Right.
I needed to fully confess what was going on, and confessions began to break the chains inside of me. God began to show up, and the next thing I knew, I was in a 90-day treatment center in the middle of nowhere, Oklahoma, with a donkey named Taco and
No
Burrito,
way. Oh my
shoveling manure and trying to figure out what happened in my life. But it was the most blessed season I've ever experienced. 90 days
Wow.
completely isolated, separated, where I got to figure out who I was, why I did what I did. Most importantly, realize that I was not alone, right?
Right.
That's what
Mhm.
you find out at treatment. You realize all these other stories.
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought I was the only one telling, the only one living. Frankly, there was hundreds of people living that.
There's
And so
so many. Yeah.
God began to just call me, as so many other addicts feel, this draw, this feeling to help other people like us.
Mhm.
And just like I found a tribe of people that were trying to medicate through drugs and alcohol in high school, I found a similar tribe of people that were trying to change their life through
Yeah.
sobriety. And I fell in love with that. I
I
couldn't
love it.
get enough of it.
Oh.
And so left that treatment center. To make a long story short, went back, worked there for a little while, learned a little bit about this thing called addiction recovery,
Mhm.
and got the vision to start Hope is Alive, and opened our first house February 15th of 2013.
Wow. So the first steps of obedience for you was confession. Like you openly confessed to another person what you were doing, and God took a hold of you at that moment when you literally maybe didn't even know what you were doing biblically, is you were
Oh yeah.
confessing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I had no idea really what I was doing, but I knew I was sick and tired of being sick and tired, and I
Yeah.
had to get it out.
Mhm.
And I guarantee you, I walked out feeling 15 pounds lighter because I had
Yes.
finally just released this weight of the burden,
Yeah.
almost taken it off of my neck. And I didn't know any idea about what was next, what was the step, where
Mhm.
should I go, how am I going to do this? In fact, I'd never been to an AA meeting. I didn't understand recovery. I didn't get any of it, even as I was literally being dropped off at a treatment center. I just knew that I couldn't take this amount of pills anymore,
Yeah.
but I couldn't stop doing it on my own.
Yeah.
I had
For
tried many
sure.
times,
For
and
sure.
God was just doing for me what I couldn't do for myself, and allowed me to have that opportunity to step foot into treatment and find not my father's God or my mother's or my aunts or uncle or grandparents, but find my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
addicts aren't going to be told what to believe or who to
No.
believe. We've got to
No.
find Him
Yeah.
on our own. And I met Jesus on a 90-day treatment center in the middle of nowhere in Oklahoma, underneath literally a cross that they had out in the field every single night, when I would just pour out my heart and my soul and in tears. And Jesus met me there and showed me such grace in my lowest place, in my
Yeah.
darkest moments. He
Mhm.
showed me that there was a life of abundance in front of me, and that He
Yeah.
forgave me for everything I'd ever done and would do. And I certainly wouldn't be perfect, but I'd have a second chance at life from that point forward.
So good. And I love the different multiple pathways to recovery, that Jesus can meet you anywhere. Like for me, if I went to a place in the middle of nowhere with, like, what'd you say, a horse and a donkey, I probably
Yeah.
wouldn't have made it. It wouldn't have been my jam, but God knew where He needed me to reach me in that moment. So I love that everyone can recover differently, but the end result is Jesus. And I love it so much. That's where the freedom is. So you found Him under that cross. And then,
Yes.
so did He tell you your purpose and calling right away?
Yeah. Actually,
Yeah.
I really feel like He did. Room number 9. I all remember these things so well. On my
Yeah.
knees, summer night, and God speaking to my heart in my spirit that I've called you to make an impact.
Mhm.
And that phrase, to make an impact, and almost like with your story to make an impact, that's what I felt He had asked me to do, or told me He would do through me. And my response in obedience just had to be yes.
Yeah.
And I preach this, I'll continue to preach it. There's just power in saying yes to what God is calling you and asking you to do. And really that's faith, because you have no idea what it's going to behold, what's going to happen afterwards. You just have to say yes. And so I'm sitting in the treatment center. The staff knows that my dad's a preacher, so I'm the pastor's kid.
Mm-hmm.
It's a Thursday night. The Bible study guys didn't show up. So they come over to me. They say, "Hey, Lance, we know you're a pastor's kid. Could you get up and do a little Bible study for the guys?" So I'm sitting there thinking, oh my God, this is what my whole life has been like this. I've been running from this my whole life.
Mm-hmm.
And in that little still small moment, God said, I called you to make an impact. You must say yes to everything I ask you to do. And so then I got up in front of those guys, my peers, right? I'm bald, so I was sweaty and you could see it everywhere. And I had no idea what to say. But I was just trying to say yes. And from that point forward, God really gave me so many incredible opportunities to tell my story, to speak to other people, to help a lot of people on the phone. And that was really the beginning stages of him calling me into this ministry.
No, that's such a beautiful story. I love it. So before you went to rehab, so we know that Jonah felt called in the Bible. Jonah also ran away from his calling. Like God told him and he still ran away. Did you feel that calling before you met Jesus or what'd you say, room 9?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
Britni, you're asking all the right questions, because that's exactly right. I always felt a desire to help the underdog.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's been my deal. I can remember going to camp and seeing, someone who might have special needs or somebody that was being left out. And my heart was always drawn to that. And how can I help? And but I didn't know why or how. I just knew that I wanted to help people.
Yeah.
And what God does is he'll use, nothing's ever wasted. So every single point of education, every mentor, every sermon I sat under, every experience I watched my dad go through as a ministry leader, God was using all that to kind of build up my tool belt of tools.
Yeah.
I just had to be willing to go put them into practice. And the first time you do it, it's clunky. You don't know how the screwdriver works and how the drill works, but you just got to start using those tools that God gave you. And that's really all I was trying to do. He was putting in front of me the people that now I actually had a little bit of knowledge on how to help. Why? Because I'd gone through it.
Yep.
And I knew what it felt like to withdraw. I knew what it felt like to disappoint your family. I knew what it felt like to be all alone and isolated and feel insane. And I could just communicate that to other people that were walking through it, and trust God with the rest.
And trust God with the rest. So what would you say to someone specifically that came to you and said, I feel the call of God on my heart, but I'm having trouble taking that next step of obedience?
Well, you never know what lies on the other side of a yes. And I would tell you that you're potentially sacrificing your future and your God-given calling. And when you're stepping into your calling, life is easier. It's not always perfect, but I promise you, you will step and run and stride faster. You'll break through obstacles with more strength. Doors of possibility and favor will open for you. When you step into your calling, it's what God created you to do. Then you'll be able to make more exponential impact. You'll be able to influence people in a bigger way. And so don't sacrifice what God has for you because you're temporarily scared. All your response has to be is yes to it. Do it with your very best. Trust God with all the rest of it, which is a lot easier said than done. I understand.
Yeah.
But I have been there. I have been on stage and I forgot what I was saying. I have been on the phone with a mom and not really know what to tell her. I've been sitting in front of an addict who tells me I have no idea what I'm talking about. But man, every single one of those experiences, I did what I was supposed to do and just try to say yes and be as best as I could faithful with the results to put in his hands.
Right. So that was my next question. Do you still feel that fear sometimes when God's calling you to that next level?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I had a call yesterday with a pastor that's a kind of a coach and a mentor to me. And for 25 minutes that I got with him, I said, I don't know if I can lead at this next level. I'm scared of growth. You know, where we are right now in the ministry of 24 homes and 10 cities and 5 states and 200 residents in the program, which is all good and amazing. But honestly, you know, God's taking us, elevating us to even a bigger national footprint. And I question myself at times, can I lead at this level? You know, do I have what it takes? And just like I did at day one, I go and I talk to a mentor. I trust God. I listen to the people that are around me. I find mentors that love me, and I just try to say yes to honestly the next thing that's in front of me. And in this moment is talking to you and giving everything that I have to this conversation. And then I'll close this computer and I'll go to the next thing and trust God with the results. It just happens to be on a little bit bigger level, and we're able to reach a little bit more people. But it's all because of him and through him. And as long as I can get myself out of the way and trust him with it, then I'm in a good place.
Yes. Okay. So you mentioned always having someone higher than yourself, like a mentor, a coach, someone that's leading you to that next level that's higher than you. How important is that?
Oh, it's critical, and it's critical at every level. In my first book, I talk about finding hope partners, and this is just a phrase to basically mentors. It's just people that are in front of you that have something that you want. Our entire organization is built around this principle,
Yeah.
not only internally in helping residents begin to find coaches and people that will love them and disciple them and give them opportunities they wouldn't have had otherwise, but also financially. I mean, through our fundraising, it's all about meeting with people that are further down the road, casting a vision and asking for their help.
Yeah.
And if, as us as addicts, if we can't ask for help from people, man, we'll never get to where God really wants to take us.
Make it.
We've got to be at a place of humility where we're willing to say, I don't have it all figured out. I don't know what to do next, and I need your help. And I believe that God honors it, and I believe people respect it. And lastly, I think people want to help others.
Oh, yes.
They're just waiting for an invitation to be asked to come alongside you in whatever way it might be to help you down the road.
Yeah. I always say, so someone told me one time, Michael Jordan, he's the best, right? The best, but he has 5 different coaches surrounding him all the time, dealing with different aspects that maybe he's blind to, but they can see when he's playing, like, hey, you didn't make this move right, move a quarter of an inch this way, and you're going to perform better. And he's the best, right? And he still has coaches. So I think every single one of us needs coaches as well, or mentors, or someone higher than ourselves.
Absolutely. It's critical.
Yeah. Okay. So you said yes, and you kept going. Where did God lead you after those yeses? And it sounds like he moved you pretty fast.
Yeah, God's always done that in my life. When I've been in the right place, he's moved things really quickly. And so we opened up that first home in February of 13, and then opened a second and a third and a fourth, and things really moved quickly. And then, this young lady that I had been dating through my addiction, and I'd really put her through a lot of tough stuff. God began to kind of reconnect us, and he was doing some work on her heart and called her to the ministry. And so right before we got engaged, she joined the ministry and opened the first women's home for Hope is Alive. We subsequently get married, and it really is cool. It's an amazing story of grace and forgiveness and patience. And so my wife and I lead the ministry today, and we opened up obviously men's homes and women's homes. And then we kind of realized about, a quarter of a way into that not only were men and women needing help, but families were incredibly shame-filled, guilty, secluded, and not really having the opportunity to connect with community. And so we started support groups for family members called Finding Hope. And it's based off of a book that I wrote with my parents. And that's been a really incredible part of our ministry today. There's 37 support groups in 7 states, 2 different languages, and over 500 people. Yeah. Over 500 people every month attend Finding Hope support groups across the country. And that's a part of our organization that not a lot of folks even know about, but it's a huge potential. We believe there'll be a Finding Hope support group in every community in America. That's our vision for it.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of a little bit of a nutshell of what's happened the past 9 years. And like I said today, about 24 homes in 10 cities, 5 states, and we got plans for 5 more this year across kind of the Midwest, and we'll continue to go and grow as God wills it.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so as God grows you, do you feel like you have to go at a deeper level with God as he grows you higher? Yeah.
I certainly should be. I'm not perfect. So there's times where I probably am missing the mark. And unfortunately, I'm reminded of that when I'm just operating kind of in that dry drunk scenario. I've got a great wife that will help me. But yeah, I mean, our roots have to be growing deeper if the tree's growing taller, right? I mean,
That's a good way to put it.
we've got to be going deeper in the Word, with, or even our relationships. You think about, Jesus had the 12, but then he had the 3. And thinking about even relationally, we've got to get tighter, more accountable, more transparent, more vulnerable, because as things grow and opportunities come and finances increase and things change, and oh, by the way, we're further away from our rescue as addicts, the temptations, let's be honest, can come right back. And even though I'm saved and I'm trying to renew my mind at all times, I am still flawed and human. And as those temptations can come our way, if we're not rooted deeply, then yeah, we'll be swayed by the winds of the world. And so I'm trying as best I can to go deeper. And some things that my wife and I have changed just recently. We've gotten into a new church, a smaller community. We've joined a small group of people that we don't employ. So outside of our organization, where we can be completely transparent. I have been working with a new coach on the organizational leadership side of things. And I've just learned this. We also have a new baby, by the way, which has changed our whole world.
Congrats, though.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
So I've just learned that if you're not changing with the new seasons, you will be left behind, and you will, or the organization or the people around you or the business will outgrow you if you're not outpacing it in growth. And one of the things that God showed me several years ago is what I'm experiencing as a leader is what my people will experience in the next seasons to come. So God's taking me through certain pains and relationship hurts and growth pains, all those kind of things, so that the people that I employ and that are following me will be willing and able and understand and have seen success, someone else going through it. And so anyway, there's a bunch of nuggets there. Hopefully that's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. So community 100% is important. People higher than you, and then your church home. And then, so what do you do for like the Word of God? What are you doing? Do you have like a daily practice with God? What does that look like for you?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm in a different devotional plan. I'm on the YouVersion Bible app. And so I go through all of those. I have a few of those plans on there myself, small plug. But
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've got a handful on there for sure.
What are they called?
So yeah, Hope is Alive.
They're all called Hope is Alive. Okay.
Well, one is called Hope is Alive. One's called Finding Hope. Hope Dealers, Secret Weapon. Right. Yeah. There's a few different ones on there. Right. And so, yeah, just daily, every morning, I have a pretty good routine of getting through the Word. Right now, I've been doing the New Testament every quarter. And so it's called New Testament in 30 days. I'm a little slower than that. So I'll do the New Testament in the whole first quarter, but I'll use that plan. Yeah. And so we're wrapping up a quarter right now as we're talking. And so I'm almost done with the New Testament. I was reading Galatians 5 this morning. I'm talking about freedom. And so absolutely in the Word every day as best as I can. And because if I don't get into it, man, the world will get into me.
Yes. Okay. You said the word freedom, and it is in your book and it's everywhere. What does that mean to you?
Oh man, just free to be exactly who God created me to be, and not live in guilt and judgment and shame. And that doesn't mean that I don't struggle with those things, but that's where I aspire to live, where I can be completely comfortable in my own skin. And I can't get there if I don't recognize that God loves me just for who I am. And that's freedom, is living in that place of God loves me just the way He created me. Yeah. And, His grace is sufficient for me today, and His mercies are new tomorrow. And if I can live in that place, then I can live in freedom. When I begin to feel judgment, guilt, resentments build up, I'm hesitant to step into my calling. Those are places where I'm experiencing bondage again. Yeah. And that's not any different than putting opiates up my nose. No. It's the same. It's a very similar spiritual bondage. And so I've got to work a program, and spiritually and recovery speaking, that helps me to live in that freedom where I'm truly drop all that shame, all that guilt. This is who I am. This is who God created me. Flaws, mistakes, hangups, habits, all that. But His grace is sufficient for me today. His mercies are new tomorrow, and I'm going to continue to chase the calling. Yeah.
So there's people who are just now stepping into that light. They're stepping into this freedom. They're stepping into like, okay, here's the light of God. I know what he's calling me to do. But we know when we step into our purpose, like the world comes at you. When you're being authentic, people will say things about you. People have the craziest things to say about you. So how do you combat that as you're living in your true, authentic self, the way God made you to be? How do you combat what everyone around you is saying?
Oh, you mean there's haters?
There's haters, and it can be families. Some of our families are our
Um,
biggest haters.
that's for sure. Yeah. The message version of the Beatitudes in Matthew 5-7,
Mhm.
he talks about, Jesus talks about haters, and I don't know that he was using that terminology, but he knew he's in and
Yeah.
outside of time, so he knew that that term would be there. And he basically says, be of good cheer,
Yeah.
smile, be
Mhm.
joyful about it, because that means that what you're doing is making a difference, and it's pushing darkness back with light. And
Yeah.
so I would almost honestly say, if you're not experiencing some form of hatred, haters, opposition, someone's not mad at you for what you're doing, then what are you really doing to really push back darkness? And I say that cautionarily, because I know that that can be tough. We're not trying to just be
Yeah.
reckless. I don't want to
Right.
be reckless with what I'm
Mhm.
doing, but I also want to make sure that, man, the work we're doing is making a difference. And if we're just doing it for a good social media post, or to feel a little better, or to polish our crown, then that's
Mhm.
not the intent. And so I've had a lot of folks question what we do, a lot of people that don't understand why we do it the way we do it, a lot of people hating on me or my wife. And I just I'm human, so that hurts at times, but I also
Yeah.
just go back to those Beatitudes and say, hey, man, be of good cheer, smile about it, it's going to happen, chuckle. I think it even says that, chuckle,
Does
laugh with it.
it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's just part of it. And with growth comes more eyeballs, and that's
Yeah.
okay, because ultimately it means more lives are changed.
Yeah. So have you ever had a moment, because I've had a moment like this, where I heard from the Holy Spirit specifically, like, this is your next step. This is what you're supposed to do. And in that moment, I'm like, okay, but XYZ, my mom is going to hate this choice. Have you ever had a moment like that where it's like divine revelation, but then immediately you're like, the world is going to hate this?
Oh yeah, about every other day.
Yeah.
Yeah, that happens all the time. And doing the work that we do with my wife and I as kind of co-leaders, I mean, we experience a lot of those things where maybe I feel like we should do something, but the program's not ready, or Allie feels like the program should do this, but we're not there funding wise, and all those kind of different scenarios. And that's why it's so important to have somebody to talk to,
Yeah.
and to a coach, like
Mhm.
yourself, somebody that you can call and walk through the scenario with and say, this is what I felt the Spirit was saying.
Yeah.
And then trusting that God is in you and he's in me.
Yeah.
And that somebody else, a brother or sister in Christ, can discern what that idea or that dream might be, or might meant in that season of your life. And so I experienced that an awful lot. At the same time, I've pretty well put blinders up like the horses, and
Yes.
I know what God's called us to do.
We need it.
I unfollow people that don't understand it. If they're
Yeah.
gonna hate on it, I block them. I don't want to see it. I'm running my race.
Yeah.
I don't need to see other people's races. I
Yeah.
just know what God's called me to run. And again, doesn't mean I'm outside of correction or accountability. I have a lot of
Right.
that, but I don't need whatever this little thing is going to show me in somebody's feed that's going to get me off of my track.
Yeah.
If the Holy Spirit's working through me, he's not working through Instagram.
I love that. I always say, don't look to the right or to the left. And so you have all these amazing analogies that go with everything I say. It's literally like you're running the race. You have, what are those things called? They're literally called
Blind.
blinders. They're called
Yeah.
blinders. Okay. Yeah. Where you cannot look to the right or to the left. And it says that in the Bible, like, don't look to the right or to the left. Just keep going in the direction that he is calling you to go. So I love that. So what about Hope is Alive? Like, what growth do we see from here?
Well, we're going to open 5 houses this year. We've opened one already.
Wow.
in Arlington, Texas. So we're expanding to Texas this year. So we'll be in the DFW Metroplex. We're relocating a house in North Carolina right now. We look to add homes, hopefully in Colorado Springs this year. And who knows wherever else God might lead us, but we're going to try to open 5 more. We did that last year, and that's kind of the pace that we've at least set out for the next few years. If God wills it, we're trying to be ready as best we can. We all know, if those that are listening, that we're in the middle of another incredible epidemic, and there's more people dying than we've ever seen. And so whatever you're doing in the world of recovery, bless you. Whoever's listening to this, whatever you're facing and you're battling on the front lines, thank you for doing what you're doing for people like me to get a chance to save and change their life. We're just trying to do our part. We don't believe there's one perfect way. There's a lot of ways. Yeah. This is just a way that we feel like God's blessed us with, and the vision that he's given us. And we believe that men and women recover best in the confines of community when they're surrounded by commonly afflicted people. And so we're trying to do that and help them really heal core wounds in a long-term program. And as often as God will allow us to open more homes and help us to bring on the right staff, we'll continue to do that as long as we can maintain a healthy, safe organization.
Oh, that's so beautiful. God has got his hand on y'all. But we know that also, I want to just speak this, that there's nothing different about me or you except for Jesus. Like, I know it can seem so big to watch someone who's so blessed and just God has done abundantly more through, but there's people starting out that are just starting out, but God's doing it for them too. Everyone can reach the level that you're at today, right?
Oh, absolutely. Much beyond this. I mean, this is God's just using a broken, junkie, drug addict guy, from Oklahoma that just wanted to tell his story a few times. And there's absolutely, he can use you. Not only can he wants to, and he will. Yeah. It's just, I do believe that he meets you where you're willing to go. And so you got to get up, pick up your mat. Like the Bible talks about, pick up that mat, roll it up, put it on your shoulder, and get out there and start walking, and he'll lead you where he wants you to go. But you're going to have to get up and do the work. And we've worked really hard over the years. At the same time, God's blessed Ephesians 3:20 style over and over and over and over and over again, more than we could ever possibly think or imagine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Did you ever think in the beginning, when God told you your first vision, did you ever think it would be this big?
No, I mean, I knew that, the cultural ideas that I had of kind of community and connection and what it could do with men specifically, that it was powerful just because I'd never seen anything like kind of what he was explaining. But I didn't understand the scalability of it really till about 3 or 4 years ago when we stepped out of Oklahoma for the first time and we were able to kind of raise community fundraising support. And I realized, oh, wait, like, obviously the need's everywhere, but not only the need, the willingness to support it is everywhere too. And if we can do this in a healthy, smart, slow way, then we could build a real sustainable thing across the country. And that's what we're trying to do. Yeah,
I love it. Okay. So another thing, it sounds like people were more than willing to give you the support that you needed. Another thing I see is people having this big vision that God divinely gave them, and we know it's from God, but then the fear of, but I have $0 in the bank account.
Yeah, I did too.
Yeah.
I mean, I couldn't get a loan. I had to go lease the first house or rent the first house and beg and plead them to rent me the house. And that's a whole nother story. But I mean, I had one guy give me a little bit of money to get started, and the rest of it was, I mean, if you're listening to this and you want to start something, and I had 3 other consulting jobs, other jobs basically while I was living in the house and I lived in the house, the first house, for 3.5 years. I had hundreds of roommates, I mean, I did the deal. And I did everything. I did the social media post. I sent the fundraising letters. I sat and did one-on-ones. I led Sunday night meetings. I preached on the weekends. I mean, I'm not bragging. I'm just saying that you got to be willing to hustle. Yeah. And you still have to be willing to earn a living somewhere else, probably. But I tell people all the time, my dad used to tell me, you got to earn your priesthood. Yeah. And I believe that those first 2 or 3 years, as I was doing a bunch of different things, I was earning the priesthood, earning the right and the respect to really step into the calling. And then God will God will be faithful to give you what you can handle. And I believe that. And then another sense, God one day told me, did I call you to be comfortable? Because there's a
Mm,
fine line there where I was having all these other jobs and I was living in the house running the nonprofit. And it was like, whoa, 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 whoa. I didn't call you to be comfortable. So I had to drop all of the other consulting things and go headlong 100%
yeah,
into Hope is Alive. And that happened, I think, a couple years into the life of the ministry. And it was a faith step. And I
yeah,
started off with a $500 a month salary. And that's
yeah,
what I had to figure out how to live and how to function. And I did, and kind of the rest is history.
yeah. And then God provided the rest of the way. He just
Oh,
completely
absolutely.
provided for you. Yeah. Michael Todd, I always say this. He says, where there is vision, there's always going to be provision. God will provide, but it takes, like you said, the action on your part. It doesn't just fall from the sky. You have to keep going, and God then is going to just bless it abundantly. So I love
That's
it.
right.
Well, is there anything else? Where can we find you? Where can we find your
Sure.
book, Hope is Alive?
Yeah, so all my books are just self-published,
Mhm.
so on Amazon, you just search Lance Lang on Amazon, or you can go to lancelang.com to find all the books as well. And then just social stuff at Lance Lang. You can follow me anywhere. But more than that, go follow Hope is Alive. You'll
Yeah,
enjoy that a whole lot more. We
yeah,
do a great job of trying to tell the story. So Facebook and Instagram is where Hope is Alive lives. And you'll want to go follow all that. If you're curious about our homes, or somebody that you love needs help, or you need help in a support group, you can go to hopeisalive.net or findinghope.today.
okay, awesome. Thank you so much for being here today. You
Thank
are
you,
such
Britni.
a blessing. It was so good to meet with you.
I enjoyed it. Have a
Bye.
great one.